this point in time, I'd say one great topic of interest would be Iran ratcheting up their enrichment of nuclear fuel. That can have potential consequences depending upon what they intend to actually do with that nuclear material. Another, I suppose, would be further repercussions from Copenhagen, the climate summit from there. Greece, of course, with their current financial state and how it affects the rest of the European Union. Another would be, of course, China and the United States spat with each other concerning internet censorship and hacking.
So where do you get all your information about these things that are happening in the world?
I jump around from a few sources. More recently, I've primarily been reading the BBC. In particular, I like the fact that you can get their World Service news straight from their internet website.
Do you find that the BBC has a different brand of news than we have in the States?
I would definitely say so.
And what's the difference?
Based on my own personal experience, a lot of the shows and a lot of the news seems to feel like somewhat less opinion and more facts.
In the BBC? Mm-hmm. Now, Matthew, I know that you have a college degree. Can you tell me a little bit about your education?
Yes, I went to what is now Trine University, used to be Tri-State University in Angola, Indiana. I originally went for a computer science degree, but eventually switched over to English after some experimentation. The English department there wasn't an English degree there originally, but they started one up on a trial basis. I was one of the people that went through that, and eventually graduated with a bachelor's degree. Unfortunately, that department isn't there anymore. The university decided they wanted to go to a completely technical school.
Mm-hmm. But your bachelor degree is certainly valid and recognized by others.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What were some of the activities that you did while you were in college?
While I was in college, primarily I wrote for the college newspaper, the Triangle. I wrote primarily commentary on international and national events. I also served in Sigma Tau Delta, the English chapter there. Through my time there, I pretty much served in just about every officer position. I was student senator, vice president, president, and treasurer at different times.
That's very impressive, Matthew, that your college experience, your degree, and the activities that you were involved in while you were in college. How about work experience? I see on your resume that you work at Staples,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been there since 2001?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you're still there right now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your job at Staples.
At Staples, originally, I was hired primarily for copy center, which of course involves running all the equipment, helping customers utilize the self-serve equipment, self-serve copies, self-serve fax machines. Also, the job tends to involve maintenance throughout the store in terms of cleaning out trash, cleaning up the floor, things like that. Mm-hmm. But of course, through my time there, I've kind of branched out and cross-trained, and I can, as of right now, I can run about every single area of the store. And right now, in fact, I'm being trained to run inventory maintenance, like zero balance, blocks, cycle counts, things like that, just to make sure everything's actually in the store and things like that.
And how many hours a week do you work?
Up until recently, I've been getting around 30 hours a week now. With things being as they are, I generally only get 20 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think your strengths are, Matthew? If I'm going to hire you for my newspaper, tell me what your strengths are.
Strengths? I like to go in depth. I always like to check my sources. No one really likes to be wrong, but I really particularly dislike being wrong. I'm very detail-oriented, so I always do my best to check multiple sources and examine things in detail before I write about them, because you don't really want to write false information and then have to retract it after the fact. Mm-hmm. Another is, through my time at Staples, I've learned to interact with other people, how to deal with challenging situations, things like that.
I also see in your background that you've held some real leadership positions in various ways in college. Can you tell me a little bit about how you became interested in being a leader?
Mostly, if you mean so far as the positions in Sigma Tau Delta, that department was admittedly small. Of course, that's part of the reason why I ended up running various positions. Student Senate interested me the most because even small scale, that still gives you kind of an idea of, say, how a larger Senate or gubernatorial house would function. I also acted as treasurer mostly because no one else had taken up the task, but that gave me a fair bit of experience in accounting, things like that. Then, of course, vice president, president, as other people moved on, I was one of the more senior people in the group at that time. That pretty much just involved a little bit of setting tasks, what we were going to do with our finances, things like that.
And what things are you still working on
Right.
that would make you a valuable worker?
Right now, I still read up on news events. I try to write. Unfortunately, with the economy being what it is, it's very difficult to branch out at this point. But I've done my best to try and keep up with news, try to keep writing and keep getting into newspapers or other outlets.
Is that your eventual goal, Matthew?
Oh yes, very much. I very much want to do that.
To be a writer for a newspaper, that would be your ultimate goal? Yes. Well, Matthew, I think you have a very fine resume and some very, very, very good experience. I also find it to be very personable and very, very gifted, I think, by reading some of the articles that you sent me. They're very detailed and they're very readable, and you draw some really good conclusions. I think you're very talented.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And is there anything else that you can tell me about you that may help me to make a decision about who I'm going to hire for this job?
I suppose I should state I have Asperger syndrome, which is the lightest on the autistic spectrum of mental disorders along that line. That does potentially affect your social interactions, though, of course, with my time at Staples, you kind of learn to get around that, interacting with people as much as you do. But kind of as I mentioned for detail orientation, people with autistic spectrum disorders tend to be more detail oriented, which I think has definitely helped me in terms of writing good articles and performing the tasks I did at Student Senate and other areas at Sigma Tau Delta.
So do you find that by taking those type of positions, by doing those type of volunteer things when you were in college, that it helped you with your social skills?
I'd say definitely so. Particular Student Senate, on one or two occasions, we did have to actually propose funding for certain areas, like add books to the library and things like that. You have to be able to present that, of course, and persuade people to see your side.
Well, Matthew, I think that you're a very, very nice individual, and you have a lot of gifts and a lot of talent, and it was very, very nice to meet you. It was a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you. You as well.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Didn't he do a good job? That was great. Very.